Hi friends, today I am finally filming my top 10 SONIA G brushes. I think the delay from me wanting to film this video was from the simple fact that I needed to make some tough decisions. I had first wanted to just do top 5. That was a little too cutthroat. I then decided to do 5 eye brushes, 5 face brushes. That was a lot more reasonable. Even still difficult to accomplish, but this list came through my own lens. Despite how many SONIA G brushes I have and knowing some of the designs in her collection are just outstanding, are incredibly popular, and why I think, well, that might be a separate iconic list. And then I thought, let me just focus on my personal top 10 favorites, and I do have demos here. Even though I have a bunch of SONIA G videos with their own B-roll footage, I thought let me just update on new footage using my top 10. And we'll start off with complexion. This was tough because I have so many favorite SONIA G complexion brushes that I can give a slew of reasons why I would consider one being the ultimate favorite, but I gotta give it to the Jumbo Base. When her Fusion face set hit, I think it was summer of 2021, outstanding collection. And the Jumbo Base, to my surprise, initially I did not realize it had a slant to the brush head, and when I discovered it did upon using it for the first time, that truly took the polishing to the next level. Now personally, if you don't know, I rather use brushes to apply my foundation. In terms of brush technique, I do like the paddle down method, the circular method, and you could argue that the circular method is one of my favorites, 100%. I have plenty of round foundation brushes that I constantly reach for, but when it comes to Jumbo Base, the thickness, the density, the slant, the fact that it is a hybrid design, it has both natural and synthetic fibers in the brush head, just makes it insanely versatile in terms of it being compatible with liquid, cream, and powder mediums. And the paddle down method for me ensures the product just gets blended well into the skin, and Jumbo Base leaves behind a polished finish. The makeup appears virtually undetectable. Granted that you don't use as much initially, you build accordingly. Perhaps use a smaller brush to target those portions of your face, the smaller ones that have a little more unevenness or there are blemishes there. But the size of Jumbo Base gets my foundation on fast, and again, the way it blends the product into my skin, it's hard to ignore this brush's capability. Not only with foundation, but you can use Jumbo Base with a cream blush, cream bronzer, different products in the cream and liquid category that work well with Jumbo Base, but I had to highlight it for its blending of foundation for me, and the fact that my skin looks incredibly smooth, not using skincare. I did apply some face cream before I applied House Labs, and that definitely helps, but again, the sheer experience from using Jumbo Base is unparalleled, and I had to include it in my top 10 SONIA G faves. Next up, we'll move into concealer. Again, another tough one. There are several favorite SONIA G concealer brushes, but there wouldn't be a more appropriate pairing than Jumbo Concealer. Designed similarly to Jumbo Base and has the same mixture of synthetic fibers and natural hairs. You see the slant here on the brush head. I love not only to pounce on my concealer to blend it in for under my eyes, but I also like to sweep down in order to blend the edges of that application. And the fact that you can use this also, if you wanted, you could take it through the eyes if you have bigger eyes and wanted to use a cream product there on the lid. You could also use this to tap on liquid highlighter if you wanted. Perhaps you can draw on your cream bronzer or contour. You could take product here down the sides of your nose. It's not too small, but not too big either. I had thought about Worker. Worker is an exceptional brush. It is bigger and the bristles are longer, so there is more movement present when applying a product. But the density for Jumbo Concealer is something that I admire. Its capability of, again, picking up product but leaving enough behind for that coverage you're looking to achieve on the face, but it not being so stiff and dense that it feels tough to use on the skin. And again, I was between this, Worker, Soft Concealer, another favorite of mine, even Mini Base. Jumbo Concealer, however, unique in that because I do have concealer brushes from other brands that have a more pronounced slant, right? Where the bristle starts lower, but here a more moderate taper, I think unique. And why I had to include it because despite the favorites I have in the concealer category, Jumbo Concealer, the way it blends my concealer out is exceptional. It looks polished, it looks even, it doesn't look overly made up or textured under the eyes, given that I prep this area well. And when I do, my goodness, it's small enough to get into the inner under parts of the eyes. It fits under the lash line well. And again, other portions of the face that require precision, Jumbo Concealer is that brush for you. Had to be in the top 10. This next one was hard, okay? Because this is the category of my complexion routine where several brushes can be a favorite for. But I had to give it to Mini Cheek from the Sky Face set. Forget the fact that the blue to black gradient is one of my most favorite designs from the SONIA G collection. This is a mixture of dyed and undyed Tuckahoe goat hair, and the reason why I picked this over Detail Pro or even the Detail brush from her most recent Fundamental Face set is I guess I am partial to the flat round design. You see the ferrule is pinched here and allows for the flat surface on both sides here with the round dome shape at the top. And you see here on the demo that I applied my Shiseido Silk Loose Powder under the eyes, and the fact that you have that round shape at the tip of the brush allows for it to fit well under the lash line. And then I followed with my Hourglass highlighter from the Owl palette, and I do prefer to apply highlight with a flat side. You can use it with a dome brush for sure, because some people like to buff highlight onto the cheekbones in this manner, which you can still do with soft cheek, but I do like the tap on. I do prefer that method. Maybe it's just a personal bias of mine. I feel more comfortable applying highlighter in that way, but the fact that I can turn the brush on its head and still buff the product after tapping it on, hello, versatility. And although it's small, you could whip in a precise serving of bronzer or contour here, but because of the brush length, you have the room to swirl and twirl, diffuse the product even more without it appearing tightly applied, right? So that's why I picked this brush, because I know it's flat on both sides and it's not completely round, but I do like the fact that you have the option of the flat side and the round tip to, again, use this brush in a multitude of ways. Under the eye powdering, down the nose if you wanted. Instead of using the Jumbo Concealer to apply a cream product down the sides of your nose, you could do so here in a more diffused fashion with powder. Under the lip, you could carve in under the jawline here, and the smaller brush head makes it simple to get into the crevices of your necklines and your collarbones, however you want to go about that portion of your makeup routine. And the fact that you could whip around perhaps a more shimmery product here on the apples of your cheeks for a little more shine lower on the face, but still buff the product so it doesn't appear as shimmery, I'm telling you. And now we go into what I think is one of Sonia's most impeccable designs. Sheer Buffer is the stipple brush of my dreams. I had to go in with the Final Surgeons products here, went in with their cream bronzer in a golden heat wave, and the way these fibers grab product, virtually wrap it around the contours of my face in a diffuse fashion that just blows me away each and every time. It's inexplicable. I can't put into words how genius this brush is, because it's not too stiff but not too flimsy either. The top portion of the brush picks up the product and the bottom blends it into the skin. And I think this is a beautiful pairing with something like the Final Surgeon's cream bronzer, where you need a little bit of pickup, but the way it layers the product onto the skin is just exceptional. And I followed with their Skin Spark Blush Balm in Kindle. My goodness, I could just whip this color all over the place and it won't look clownish whatsoever. Yes, largely due to the color itself. But sheer buffer, the way it takes away product, keeps enough on your skin, and what's left behind is a virtually perfect application. I know. And you could also rely on sheer buffer for some wicked foundation application. Now, I do prefer jumbo base for that task, 100%. But if I wanted something a little lighter, right, perhaps I apply more of like a tinted, lightweight coverage type of a complexion product, sheer buffer is going to do the trick. It just whips on product quickly, polished, but more lightweight in fashion, right? And again, that's why I love this brush for my cream and liquid cheek products, because that's what I want. I want to be able to build accordingly and not the products appear muddy on my skin, because I do love to apply different products, different colors on the hollows of my cheeks and on the apples of my cheeks. And to have a brush that allows for the dial to be placed in your hand in regards to intensity and color richness just allows for the most beautiful gradient to occur on your cheeks without it appearing too color heavy. And that's what I love the sheer buffer for. This is an exceptional design from Sonia in that she truly fused. Yes, she managed to create a brush that is existing from other brands, but perfected it. Or you know what, let me just say she brought it 2.0 level, right? Because if we reach perfection, then we don't have any more brushes, right? There's always room for improvement. But Sonia managed to elevate this type of a brush design in a way that I feel is unparalleled. So I had to include sheer buffer in my top 5, and I think, well, we have one more for the face category. And some of you had said you ordered 2, because when I did my sheer buffer video, y'all were like, look, this is the one. And I agree. And the last brush, you're like, Alicia, really? Because you could have argued that since I picked mini cheek, that I could have picked a cheek brush that was a little different. But I can't help it, fam. The classic cheek from her Fundamental face set, I can't think of a more perfect cheek brush. Now, however, I was going to include soft cheek, 100%. Soft cheek is one of my most favorite cheek brushes of all time. Just from any brand, soft cheek is the one. But I went with classic because it is flat. It doesn't have a round ferrule like soft cheek. I like that flat design because, again, there's just a wider surface area that comes in contact with your skin, which means the product distribution is exceptional in the way it places it. And I applied my Valentino blush here. Just, again, it's not so dense and not so tightly packed that you have to worry about too much product being applied. It has such a lovely fluidity in the blend that you could go in with several type of blush formulas, be it baked, pressed. Unfortunately, not cream or liquid. That's why I picked sheer buffer to be included in my top 5. This one is going to give you blusher, bronzer, all powder, and also buffing. I was going to include the buffer 100%. The reason why I didn't is because I think this is more of an iconic brush from Sonia G, and I don't use this as often as I use classic cheek. Again, this list was being created from my lens in which brushes I reach for the most often. And classic cheek is just one of those brushes that I am set. No matter what product I find myself with in terms of the cheek product category, I'm good to go. First of all, hollows, done. Apples of the cheeks, done. If I wanted to apply some highlighter, I could. I don't even need a mini cheek. I just included it because I thought to have a brush that would address my under eye powdering needs. But hey, if worst comes to worst, I could use Classic Cheek if I wanted. I know it's a little big for that task, but I don't care. And then when all is said and done, I most certainly can use Classic Cheek to buff down all of my powder products 100%. It's not going to be as polished because it's not as dense as the original buffer. I understand that, and the original buffer is beyond soft. You're not going to feel that same density, right, and fluidity and softness, but you can still get it done. And I think that's why I had to include this brush, because it's not so much that it's going to deliver the most perfect results for all the tasks. It has its highlights, it has its strengths, but it could also cover other tasks that, for me, this is enough for the buffing, right? I don't need more than that because I'm not applying a ton of makeup in the first place. So for me to rely on Classic Cheek for buffing is totally fine, and why I think it an appropriate choice for it to be a part of my top 5 in the face category, because it's an exceptional brush. I don't know what else to say. From all the SONIA G cheek brushes that are fantastic, 100%, Classic Cheek is the one. She's the one. That's it. Okay, now we're at the eyes. This was the hardest. This was the toughest because SONIA G makes some of my most favorite eye brushes of all time. And of course, I had to feature Viseart's Cashmere Charmeuse so you can see it go for another run. And there's one thing, however. There was one brush that I reached for several times for different eyeshadow formulas, and I think you know which one it is. Jumbo Blender had to be a part of this list. This brush for me, in terms of the one and done shadow moments, be it from Natasha Denona, Viseart, even Pat McGrath, any of those smooth metallic formulas that just need to be applied across the lid and buffed through the crease for that blend, Jumbo Blender is it. It's that brush that gives me the all over lid coverage, but it still has enough movement to buff the edges through my crease in a way that I don't need to reach for a traditionally designed blender brush for. It's the brush that forces me to use a palette to its full capacity, meaning instead of applying 3-4 shadows at once, commit to one of the metallic shades and just use that as the entire eye look. Sure, going in with the smaller brush so you could apply the inner corner highlight and whatnot, but Jumbo Blender is your economical brush in that way, and also because of the density, one of my go-to picks for Natasha Denona's cream to powder formulas, because of its density, it could pick up enough product and place it on the lid, and the color intensity just be outrageous. But you know, if I wanted a brush to be more suited for cream and liquid powders in the eyeshadow category, it had to be the Fusion Worker. Much like Jumbo Base and Jumbo Concealer, the Fusion Eye series is designed with both synthetic fibers and natural hair, which makes it outstanding with those types of products. Now, granted, because I already committed to Viseart and it's all powdered eyeshadows, I didn't go in with a cream product, but you could see that demo in the Fusion Eye series video. I did use it to apply powder shadow under my lash line, and the worker brush from the Fusion series is a little smaller than her original worker brushes, which I like for under eye placement in that it gives me enough color there, a little more diffusing and haze, but it's not going to just drop the color so low there where it looks super grunge, right? Which is a look for sure, because I do love the grunge look under the eyes. But when I have that cream eye product, like one of the Charlotte Tilbury eye pots, or I'm thinking the Auric, the worker, my gosh, it picks up the product well, slaps it across the lid, and then you take the tip of the brush to run it through the crease as well as the lower lash line, and you're done. 100%. This is an exceptional design that I had to include in my top 5 now eye brush category, because you need the hybrid brush for the cream and liquid products for eyes, 100%. And this will be my go-to, because from the entire Fusion eye set, because I also love the Fusion Blender, I think Fusion Worker for me is the most versatile, where I could just use that one brush for the entire anatomy of my eye, lid, crease, even inner corner and lash line. line and be done. Because with cream and liquid eye products, the point is the finish is more metallic and pearl. You will rely on that product solo and take one of the topper parts, if it's one of those dual pots like the Tom Ford or even the Auric, use your finger to tap over your lid and you're done. You're done. And again, I understand because I have bigger eyes, I don't necessarily need a builder brush, which I love still from Sonia, to place color on my lid. That's what I have the jumbo blender for, and now the worker technically can apply high shine metallic, you know, these hybrid Natasha Denona formulas all over my lid. But if I wanted a little more precision, not only for my lid, but for the inner corner, had to go in, or rather choose, Builder S from her Fundamental eye set. This little guy, my goodness, what a workhorse of a small brush. Because of its flat side but still small brush head, it gets right here into the inner corner, but it allows product to be placed here on the inner part of my lid, which I consider to be separate, by the way, from the inner corner, and allows me to take it up in the arc. I could also take product here on the inner lower lash line. It's still small enough for the product to not drag low here. If I wanted a tighter application of shadow, I could place it here under the lower lash line instead of the Fusion Worker brush. And if I wanted to pinpoint a little bit more sheen here, for instance, I could take this shade from the palette and just tap it on the center of my lid for more of that spotlight effect. Then Builder S will allow me to do that because of the brush head size. And it's small enough and stiff enough to place color here on my lash line, 100%. But I chose another brush for that. I did, because it's one of those brushes that when I used it for the first time, it allowed me that easy shadow wing. And although I did use Pat McGrath's Black Coffee, I did blend out Black Coffee with the flat definer. Flat definer, my goodness, if you want just like that tight lining, because it's great to have a brush that the bristles stay together. Look at that synchronization, is exceptional. Because if you want the pencil to still stay tight to your lash line, flat definer allows for that to happen. You could also use this for inner corner, right? I know I had Builder S for that task, but flat definer definitely can cover your inner corner highlighter leads, as well as placing color here on the brow bone, which I did during the demo. Because it's flat on both sides, the tappity tap action deposits just enough product so the brow bone doesn't look overly shiny, but just has a nice spotlight effect to add to the overall eye look. And that leads us to the last brush. This was pretty easy as well. I consider it to be as easy as my jumbo blender pick, but it had to be Blender Pro. Blender Pro, my goodness, just the perfect harmony between dome and a little pointed. And the reason why I picked this brush out of all of Sonia's blender brushes is because, again, for my eye shape and size, Blender Pro is the perfect brush head size for my crease needs. It has great density, but not too dense. It's not like classic crease from the Sky Eye set, which doesn't have as many bristles as Blender Pro. There's a little more movement there, which I think more appropriate for smaller eyes, deep set eyes, just like Crease L or Crease M from our Fundamental eye set. Blender Pro for me has always been a go-to brush for pulling color through the crease in a way that looks diffused, and I just love the shape it leaves behind, especially when I pull shadow past my lash point. The way Blender Pro shapes the shadow and hugs the contours of my eyes is perfect. What else can I say? And it still has great movement here through the crease. It deposits the right amount of shadow and it doesn't appear muddy through my crease. It moves the powder well enough where you have room to build color if you want, but it's fantastic when you already have color on your lid and you just need a little bit of finishing for the edges, a little bit of blurring. And the round tip of Blender Pro, again, for my crease and eye shape is perfect. It just hugs the contours there. I feel where the product is going, and the way it carries shadow throughout my entire eye length is my favorite. It is my favorite, and a brush I reach for often. When I see Blender Pro, I just use it. I just reach for it because I know the final look from using Blender Pro. It's insurance that the blend, it's going to be exceptional. And those are my top 10 SONIA G brushes. This was hard to do, but it was also fun in diving into the reasons why I love these more than my other SONIA G brushes. And that doesn't mean that I don't love my other SONIA G brushes at all. Let's be clear about that. These are top of the line. These are the brushes that if I were left with, I'll be fine in terms of my entire routine from complexion to eyes. And I could argue for other brushes 100%. But today, right now, where my mind is, these are the choices that I made and I'm happy with them. Which leads me to ask, what are your favorite SONIA G brushes? 5 face, 5 eye. If you want to be more cutthroat and just do 5 both face and eye, go for it. I dare you. I would love to see your list down below, friends. And until then, that is a wrap. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up or maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another top 5, top 10, who knows? I gotta figure it out. Take care, and I will see you again soon.